Hi everybody, I'm Kathleen. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to make delicious raspberry bars. I'm doing some recipe testing for my job and I got this recipe, so I thought we could do it together. So the first thing we're going to do is start with some gluten-free flour, and you feel free to use regular flour, but I love Bob's Red Mill gluten-free all-purpose baking flour. I use it for all my baking and everything has turned out great. If you use a different flour, please let me know and write it in the comments. So it's 2.5 cups flour, and I already did 1 cup, and we're just gonna add in another cup and 1/2 cup. And then we're using some vegan butter. So this is not a fat-free recipe, and I use Earth Balance vegan butter sticks. I keep them in the freezer. I let them thaw out a little bit before baking. And one of these sticks is 1/2 cup. So we're gonna use 2. I normally try to make healthy cookies during the year that don't have any vegan butter and then use vegan butter at Christmas time, but this is going to be a special occasion. Then we're gonna add in 1/2 cup of sugar. All right, and now we're going to blend it together here. So again, I've let that butter sit out actually for about an hour because I had it in the freezer because I don't use it all the time. Okay, so it's going to be like a shortbread crust. So once you get your hands in there, you can actually help work out some of these chunks as well. So I'm going to just dig my hands in here, break some of those down, and some of it is the sugar. So we're going to put 2/3 of this into a 9x13 baking sheet, and I've preheated my oven at 350, and I'll write this all out in the comments. Sorry, my sugar really stuck together here, some of the chunks. And we'll save back 1/3 that we're gonna actually sprinkle on top for a crumble after we do the jam. But first, we're going to put it into this 9x13 pan. Get your hands messy. Break down some of those chunks if they didn't get all blended. Okay. So we have a nice shortbread crust. Just a little, well, I'm going to save back that much. I've tried a different version of raspberry bars and they were delicious, but I had some problems, so I'm going to try to iron them out with this recipe. Really letting it cool in between shifts seems to be key. So we are going to bake this now for 10 minutes. Let me just add a smidgen more over here. All right. Ta-da. So we're gonna put it on the top rack of the oven and let it bake for 10 minutes. And then when it's done, we'll put in our raspberry preserves. So I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, so the crust baked for 10 minutes and it looks great. I've let it cool for a few minutes before we add our raspberry jelly. So I'm using today this raspberry jelly from Simple Truth Organic, which is a Kroger brand. Kroger is one of my favorite stores here in Southern California. It's a Ralph store, and it makes being vegan very affordable. So we're gonna add in 1.5 cups of this, they call it raspberry fruit spread. Try to spread it out here. So yummy. I never eat jelly. I'm not a toast and jelly person or peanut butter and jelly. My husband is. So it's kind of exciting to get to have some raspberry jelly. You can serve it with some fresh raspberries since they're in season right now. So just do a real thin layer, which is going to be better when you go to cut them. It's just not coming out all over. Oh, let's see if we can, and you can always add more. At one of my work events, I work for the Humane Society of the United States in our Forward Food program, helping to get vegan food in schools and colleges and hospitals. And we did this at my college in Kansas, University of Kansas. The chefs made it. I didn't get to make it. I'm the coordinator. But when I did the taste testing, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like one of the best things I've ever had. So it's really simple and delicious. So I'm gonna add a little bit more here to this last corner. And we're gonna drizzle it with some frosting, which of course makes everything heavenly. Okay, so I pretty much used the whole jar. Let me know in the comments some of your favorite vegan desserts. I would love to try them and experiment with them. All right, so now it's almost like a strudel. We're gonna sprinkle that remaining crust we made on top and bake it again. Yeah. Just let your butter really sit out if you're freezing it. I thought an hour was enough, but you might want to even go longer. There's a fine line between having the butter get too warm and soft that it can liquefy, and I've made that mistake before too, just kind of heating it up on the stove. So letting it sit on the counter is definitely the best way for me that I've experienced. All right, okay, beautiful. Let's pop it back into the oven, and then we'll make our frosting. So we're gonna go back in for 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll check it at 10 just to see. Depends how hot your oven gets, how old your oven is, so let's do that. Okay, now for the fun part, we get to make some frosting. So it only uses 3 ingredients: powdered sugar, and I know this seems like a Simple Truth Organic ad, but I love their brand because it makes being vegan so easy. This is their powdered sugar. You're gonna use a full cup of powdered sugar, and then you're gonna use, I only use 1 tablespoon of plant milk, unsweetened. This is almond milk. This is homemade almond milk, which is on my channel. It's super easy. It's almonds and water, and you sift it through a bag. But you do have to keep an eye on it in the fridge after about 3 days because there's no preservatives. And then you're gonna use a teaspoon of vanilla. And so I've already put the ingredients in the bowl, and we're gonna mix them together and create this delicious thick frosting. So again, I only used 1 tablespoon of the plant milk, but if you want your frosting thinner, you could do that. And if you need more plant milk or powdered sugar, feel free to make it your own. But that's a good consistency. Whoops, excuse me. And we are, oh my gosh, that was so good. I rarely ever have frosting. It's quite fun. We are gonna put it in a little bag in a few minutes here and pipe it onto the raspberry bars to give it that final touch. Okay, so the raspberry bars cooked an additional 15 minutes, and then I completely let them cool. So I recommend letting them cool 30 minutes or even more before you put the frosting on. So I've put the frosting into a Ziploc bag here, and make sure you seal it. And you're gonna turn it, excuse me, we're gonna flip it, get all of it in a corner. It reminds me of the little frosting kits that came with cinnamon rolls, that still do, I'm sure. And just gonna snip off the edge. Now we're just gonna drizzle. Because I've tried drizzling with a spoon before and it was not very pretty. So we're gonna go for a little bit of a better look. This time it's totally up to you how much frosting you want. And any remaining frosting you could always keep in the freezer. So you don't want to waste the frosting, and you don't want to sit down and eat it with a spoon. So you don't go into a sugar crash. This works really well. We'll give it one more go. Voila. There it is. Vegan raspberry bars. So you can cut them into 12 squares, and then you could even cut those squares into, so you have 24 triangles. And they're so delicious. You could freeze them if needed. I'm gonna give some away to the neighbors if my husband will let me. So thank you always for joining me and for saving animals with your food choices. If you have any comments or any recipes you'd like to see, I'd love to hear from you. Have a great week.